All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Millennials Are Old podcast. And Brian, I've been thinking, right? There's many great ways to build wealth and just build happiness over the years. And I think you and I can both agree with this, Brian, is by valuing the things from our childhood and having them be hyper graded and hyper fixated on, selling them all, and then we'll be totally happy. Would you agree with that, Brian?
Well, Taylor, I accumulated a lot of things that people told me were trash as a kid. A lot of comic books, a lot of toys, a lot of clothing, a lot of video games. And people said, what is this? This is garbage. This is, you're being a child. It's like you're part of some sort of, arrested adolescent generation that overvalues material childhood. And I was like, no, I'm going to invest in all of this. And I'm going to make all of my personal creature comforts into stocks. And I'm going to make a lot of money and be independently wealthy from doing that. And you know what? Look at me now. I spent my whole life buying video games and comic books and toys, and now, well, I think this podcast speaks for itself.
Absolutely. We love conspicuous consumption. We love doing things that are holding the bag and not holding the bag, excuse me, investing in your future, having diamond hands as the old.
Oh, I'm holding a bag.
Yeah. Well, speaking of losers who are holding bags and losing all of their money, let's talk about the video game speculation market, otherwise known as the biggest fucking bullshit speculation market currently going on right now. So let's get into it. But before we get into this, Brian, let's bring back our segment, Cringe, actually incredibly tragic and sad moment of the week.
Solemn-based memorial moment of the week. I don't know how many of these we're going to do. Probably not a lot, hopefully.
We can't do a lot of them because there's just not a whole lot of based millennials out there. But, unfortunately, this world did lose a based millennial this weekend, actually. And to all the people who don't know, hopefully this is still kind of a story by the time this episode comes out in a few weeks. But we do have to talk about it, about the ICE murder of Alex Pretti. Now, this happened in Minneapolis over the weekend, and there's a lot of discourse being talked about this. Of course, anybody who knows anything about this case know he was just fucking murdered. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's no justification for any of this shit.
No, the people that support ICE know he was murdered. It's very clear when you see the way that even they are talking about this online. Everybody knows he was murdered.
Absolutely. Even fucking Trump is not picking up this fucking horse shit. Like, he's not picking up this flaming turd right now. That should tell you how much of a loser this is. Even Ted Cruz isn't picking up this turd.
So this is almost feels disrespectful to say this. This is bad. It's immoral, it's evil, it's disgusting. This is bad for them. You hate to talk about optics at a time like this, but like Trump, his instincts tell him this is bad. And you know what? When we talk about just this being a millennial show, if you wanted to talk about someone who you could look at and embodies all of the kind of the positive kind of, the warmth and, the openness and just, I guess, the commitment to comfort for other people that, sometimes millennials are tarred with and sometimes it's undeserved and sometimes it's painted as a negative. But this guy, this is a guy that some dumb piece of shit would look at and be like, oh, he cared about people outside of himself and he had this interest in comfort and accessibility for people. That's a thing that a certain type of shithead would attribute as a millennial thing. And of course, it's unfortunately not. Unfortunately, not enough of us have that drive in us. I think it's telling that, yeah, like you said, Trump's political instincts, which he does still have, they are still sharper than almost any other politician in America. Let's be honest. Not his understanding of the world, but just his emotional kind of, his id is still knows not to touch this. Allegedly, I haven't checked this for myself deeper to confirm it. I think Kyle Rittenhouse has made posts online that seem to indicate that he opposes this murder, which fuck that guy. I'm not saying that to his credit.
No, absolutely fuck Kyle Rittenhouse, a guy who, theoretically could have killed me several years ago. I'm gonna be real here. But no, real quick. So, of course, everybody's seen the fucking video, and if you're still, parroting lies that this was justified by ICE, fuck you, you're wrong, you're lying, you're getting money from ICE's $8 million fucking propaganda budget, whatever the fuck, right? But I do want to say something that is a connection to me and Brian's, distinct area. So, this has been said a little bit. Of course, people have been talking about, him working at the VA and his childhood and, all these things because, another thing too, before I get into the personal connection that I have, but the other reason that this has just landed like a turd in most most normal people's laps, in fact, pretty much every normal person, to be honest with you's laps, is because if you're from the upper Midwest, especially Midwest, any part of America really, every white mom has a kid like this, or like their kids growing up had friends like this. Like, he's an insanely likable fucking guy. He's the kind of guy that any normal fucking like white mom in the upper Midwest would want to raise. Like, seriously,
this
he was
very
a choir
affable
boy.
Guy.
Yeah, like honor roll in fucking high school, you know, became a nurse just to help people and stuff. Like, there's literally nothing to not like about this guy. Just like a well-meaning, just nice Midwest guy. That's like the best way to fucking put it. Like,
a reasonably successful independent adult who just was active in his community, was constantly in his professional life, we see, and you know, by all accounts in his personal life, thinking, looking out for other people, thinking, what could I do in my community and to the people around me that would make their lives easier, their lives safer, their lives better. A very sweet guy by all accounts, by every fucking perspective, who was acting in that same character, just being a sweet, caring guy when he was stepping up for his community, and he got murdered by some fucking inbred dropout loser who is like frustrated that they can't fucking bust a nut or something, so they like went and got a gun and no training on how to use it, and they got dropped in the middle of a fucking protest and told to mow people down.
No, it's fucking ridiculous. Like I said, the personal connection that I have with Alex is that he's from Green Bay. You know, of course, Brian and I met in Green Bay. Green Bay is my fucking hometown. He grew up in the same small town that my aunt and uncle and several of my cousins grew up in, and he went to high school across town from me. Like, this is somebody who I could have theoretically interacted with. You know, this is somebody who had basically the same trajectory as my brother, and, you know, to a certain extent, me as well. You know, he went to school in Green Bay, grew up in Green Bay, and then went to Minnesota to university, which my brother did, where he spent a lot of time in university, and apparently he has connections to Colorado, where my brother lived in Colorado for a while. And, like, he also vaguely looks like my brother, to be honest with you. Like, it's one of those things where, like, and, you know, my mom had a very deep emotional reaction to when this happened. In fact, she just had, like, an emotional fucking breakdown, and I've only ever seen my mom do that, I want to say maybe a handful of times in my entire life, like, just straight up. I was very flabbergasted by that. And, of course, now that I realize it, it's like, oh, she saw me and my brother in this fucking guy who was just murdered by the fucking state. Because, like I said, even though, you know, some people are like, oh, well, you know, it could have been anybody. And, it, like, of course, that's true. But, like, this guy and I and my brother have more of a connection than probably 99% of Americans. Like, just geographically and lifestyle-wise, and even age.
When I was reading about this, about every kind of angle of the incident, because, you know, you had said to me, oh, my mom is really shaken up by this. She's kind of freaking out about it. And I thought, like, well, yeah, because this guy is supposed to, he's a guy, because I had thought that too. I was like, oh, he kind of is on the same, like, path as, like, Taylor specifically, who's this, like, a longtime friend of mine, but a bunch of guys that I knew, was acquainted with, or was friends with around Green Bay. He's just a guy that grew up there. I mean, you say it could be anyone, and we kind of say that as an afterthought, as a given. And like you said, of course, that's true. But this is, like, a type of guy that, like, most people in Green Bay, Wisconsin do not assume they will have to be confronted with a person like that they know in their life that is like this guy being fucking murdered by feds. They do not have to sit with that knowledge. And I'm not necessarily saying that's true of your mom, but just in general, when you look at the way you and I were talking about this, that the city showed up over the last couple of days, that is, I don't want to say it's out of character for Green Bay, but it's not a thing that people spend their time thinking about there, you know?
It really isn't. I mean, if Green Bay is on the world stage, it's literally only because of the Packers. It's never for anything else. But, you know, I was in Green Bay over the weekend when this happened. And then, of course, you know, as details came in about the life of Alex Pretti, and then I learned he's from Green Bay, I'm like, oh my God, this is like going to fucking like blow up here. And I went to a protest literally, you know, just barely 24 hours after he died. Like, his corpse was just barely fucking cold. And I went to that protest in Green Bay, and I'm being serious, Brian, there were thousands of people out there. And for any sort of like civil disobedience, any protest, any march, I don't know if I've ever seen more than maybe 100 people ever in Green Bay for anything like that.
That's incredible for Green Bay. Like, for listeners, we cannot overstate this. That's crazy for that city.
And especially in fucking January, during the coldest weekend of the season. Yeah. Like, that's crazy.
You got to think about some of the people that this must have activated. Some of the people that live in Green Bay that are just kind of chill, probably largely think of themselves as not being very politicized. People who probably didn't think they'd be going to a protest like this at any point in their life, let alone in their city or, you know, connected to their city.
No, absolutely. And also, like, you know, I had heard a couple people who were talking and they actually knew Alex. Like, they had either acquaintanceships or friendships or connections with Alex. So, like, he was somebody that the community, like, at least knew of to a certain extent, including I went to this fucking boomer event with my parents the day he was murdered. backyard at night. And it was like, dude, I'm not even kidding you. Outside of children, I was the youngest person there. I'm not joking. Yeah. Like, I was the youngest person there who was not a child. But like, even at the end, the guy who was the MC, who was the most fucking just dorky boomer, like not in a bad way, just like a dorky fucking like middle-aged to elderly guy. But like, even he at the end called out Alex and said this violence needs to stop. And I'm like, oh my God, if he's saying that at the end of this affects everybody. And, you know, I think part of it too was not only because this was for a medical event, but also part of the sponsors of this event were the choir of the high school that he attended. Like, it was crazy. I'm like, this is so coincidental that I'm here at this fucking moment. It was honestly like an out-of-body experience, something that I've almost never experienced. Outside of like George Floyd protests, that was the last time I've had something like this ethereal and this like, oh my God, I am in the middle of a historical moment type thing.
Well, and I think the thing that we're going to see, that we're seeing right now, and I think we'll continue to see, we saw this with Renee Good as well for some people, I'm sure, is that when you say this is a thing that the most ethereal moment you've experienced, and it's something that maybe you didn't conceive of like having this personal connection to, it's like, because feds are murdering people, like just innocent civilians who are performing their civic duty, by the way, they're just turning up for their community. Like, a lot of us are going to have that experience that we never thought that we'd had. Like, being in a place that we didn't, you know what I mean? Being to a point that I think, even with whatever left politics you may have, or whatever sort of understanding of like politically of fascism or history or whatever, that like when this is happening, like in your cities and in your country, which this is not too unprecedented morally for America, but it is unprecedented for it to happen to like white middle Americans like this. And you are going to see it activate people and emotionally affect people in a way that they probably just never predicted in their lives.
Yes, and especially to white middle-class Americans in some of our wealthiest, well-off states. Like Minnesota, for all intents and purposes, is like with Massachusetts and maybe one other state, maybe like California, is like the most developed state in America. And you know, Wisconsin, say what you want about Wisconsin, it certainly has its problems, but Wisconsin is like one of the most stable economic states out there. Like straight up, like we have the second highest average credit score, we have the highest voter fucking turnout. And what does that say? That says that our state has a stable population in a lot of ways. So to have a guy who, you know, once again was a VA ICU nurse, I mean, I don't know how much more honorable of a position you could fucking have in society.
Someone like, who reflects to the best of that state, and that community.
Absolutely. And, you know, and on top of the other personal connection that I have, like, I have a lot of family in Minneapolis and St. Paul and the Twin Cities in general. Like, one of my cousins is literally an ICU nurse in the Twin Cities. Not at the VA, but an ICU nurse in the Twin Cities. And she's also in an interracial marriage with 2 biracial children. So I'm sure she's probably fucking terrified of a lot of this shit going on, too.
Anyone, and I'm sure listeners of our show, anyone listening to our show has already thought about this. Anyone that you know, like, if it can happen to these 2 people, it can happen to anyone. I know that might sound trite to say. Anyone that you know that's gone to an anti-ICE protest, this could happen to them.
Absolutely. It could happen to anyone. And, you know, it's one of those things, as scary as that is, you know, it's one of those things where it is scary, but it is comforting knowing that there are tens of thousands of people. Once again, there was like 50,000 people out in Minnesota on the coldest day of the season. It hit -40 with wind chill on Friday here. That's how cold it is. And tens of thousands of people still showed up in Minnesota to protest. That should tell you that there is a movement. And, you know, another positive development, I know we talked it's a very sad story, of course, this, you know, young man who was fucking murdered. But, like, you know, one silver lining is that Greg Bovino, that piece of shit fucking bovine loser, just got kicked out of Minneapolis. That says a lot.
Yeah, get fucked, I mean, go die. Yeah, get the fuck out. Go back to fucking, was he from Florida, right?
He's originally from the East Coast, but he was headquartered in, like, somewhere in California.
Okay, that's it. And the thing is, too, I don't, not to be, like, a nigger about this, we don't know what kind of actual change him being ousted. I'm happy about it either way. Will this lead to a reform in, like, ICE or in the administration? Like, no. But I think that just the fact that they had to do this is a start to that. It's like, you've got this mass mobilization of people, and they have to see that. Like, the administration, ultimately, what the Trump administration likes is to feel based and cool, and for its base to think that they're awesome, and for Trump to feel awesome, because he wants to feel like this cool, beloved, Neapolitan public figure. And he's fucking not, and he needs to see that. And it won't stick. It won't mean anything to him. He won't obviously meaningfully change for it. But seeing everyone fucking yell at him, seeing everyone go, you fucking suck, we fucking hate this, and then all he's stuck with are these loser fucking, like, chud freaks, just the worst people that he'd never associate with, he is going to potentially soften on that just because he's weak of will and weak of character, and he needs to be liked, right?
No, absolutely. And that's what I was telling my mom over the weekend when she was so upset with, you know, once again, I'm not calling her out for being upset. She's more than in her right to be upset.
No, she's correct.
Obviously.
That's the correct
She's objectively
response.
correct. And I think this has made people way more upset than even Renee Good, which, I don't know what that necessarily says, but this one I think has hit way more people than even Renee Good did. Because, Renee Good, there was a lot of people that tried to lie about what happened there too. But to the average Chud American, she was not a very sympathetic, and of course that sucks. That's awful. Literally, except for the most basement dwelling freak fucking losers ever. Nobody could have hated Alex. Let's be clear here. Nobody could have seen him as a scumbag.
Which is everyone in ICE. These basement dwelling fucking man freaks. It's everyone in ICE. And people who somehow couldn't make the grade to get into ICE that are egging them on from the sidelines.
No, absolutely. And another thing that's really interesting, never mind, I was going to tell my mom's story when she was so upset. I said, Mom, tomorrow, if you really want to make your voice heard, let's just go out to what's going on downtown tomorrow and just yell for 2 hours. I guarantee you Trump will back down. Because I said he's a pussy and an idiot and he's such a craven narcissist.
He hates being yelled at.
He hates being fucking yelled at. And we did that, and you know what? Something fucking happened. And once again, it's not saying you're right. It's definitely not the fucking end of things. But it is a step in the right direction. It seriously is.
It's something. Well, when I say that it's not going to change, I'm not saying that to be a fucking downer or to diminish the success of protesting, which people have. It sucks that it took this point for us to turn out like this, right? But it has shown a mass mobilization of people, which they need to see, because again, that's what Trump hates. He hates not being liked. And maybe he'll soften or he'll fire this guy, and maybe he'll fucking try to double down. But that's just when you show up harder, right?
No, absolutely. And I will say, outside of fucking Kristi Noem, Stephen Miller, and Greg Bovino, or whatever the fuck that idiot's name is, what Guido's actual last name is. Yeah. But other than that, nobody's still holding on to this flaming turd right now. Everybody.
Nobody wants to fucking deal with it, except Stephen Miller, who's fucking jacking off to the videos or whatever the fuck.
Oh, of course. But Stephen Miller, you could have a video of him literally melting toddlers on TV and he'd still find a way to call him terrorists.
Yeah.
No, he's an absolute fucking scumbag. But you know what? We will definitely talk about other topics like this in the future. Of course, we're not necessarily a political podcast, but of course this was something that was both obviously very important to talk about and also a connection to me and also Brian, of course, as well. But I do want to talk about a thing that I think actually is partially responsible for Trump. Conspicuous consumption, which in the video game industry is the speculator market. Now, last episode we did, of course, talk about the comic book speculation market and the comic book bust of the 90s. But I think this current speculation market, and of course, almost everything at this point is a fucking scam speculation market because it's all the economy can fucking muster.
Everything is gambling.
Everything is gambling. Everything is gambling and Nazis, as Kat Abugazela said. I think that's how you say her last name. But I want to talk about this one, which is, of course, like I said, the modern video game speculation market. Now, Brian, of course, you and I both grew up playing video games. I mostly started collecting video games because, of course, they were given to me as fucking Christmas and birthday gifts and stuff like that. But I collected video games in the GameCube, Xbox, and PS2 era, which are the games that are, I would say, now more than ever being hyper valued and hyper inflated in value. And I have actually some of the rarer, especially PS2 games. I think in the top 5, I have 3 or 4 of the most valuable PS2 games. Because, as I talked about in the last episode, when I was a kid, you could go to, Mega Media Exchange in Green Bay or Pre-Played in, Green Bay, or, even GameStop back in the day. Or, even you could get lucky at Goodwill back in the day too, before the video game fucking speculators bought all that shit up, and buy these games for fucking $5. And then you look 10 years later, oh, this game I liked as a kid, I wonder how much it is. And you're like, I could pay rent with this if I sold it. And that, of course, just goes crazy online.
So that era that you're the PS2 GameCube era, that's the last time I was kind of active in video games. But I was, as a kid and even into high school, I was really into what we now call retro games. I didn't think of them as retro. They were just the games we had growing up. That's why I loved the older Nintendo systems, all the the first wave of Nintendo systems through the NES to I guess the 64. I had a big collection of those. I had a PS1, of course, Genesis and Dreamcast and all that shit. And the thing is, I didn't think of what I was doing at the time in terms of collecting, which I did in terms of comic books. That was collecting. Kept my nice stuff in packages, put it on display, and with toys, it was collecting. With video games, because I was just to me, it was just cool, new, shiny stuff. It wasn't like comic books and toys to me, which were collectibles. So I had a ton of video games and video game ephemera that I now, when I go around to kind of vintage video game stores, which is a thing in Portland where I live now, I see things that I had as a kid and they are crazy valuable. And I just think oh, I probably threw that disc in a pile.
You know what's funny is that like, and that is, the general experience, I would say, the vast majority of gamers, especially when you're a kid. Because like when you're a kid or whatever, you don't make much money, obviously. I mean, you might make fucking allowance money or chore money or whatever. Or if you're 14 or 15, you might have a job working at the Sody Pop stand for, 10 hours a week in the summer or whatever. But you're not making a whole lot of fucking money either way for the vast majority of kids, right? So like when you have a game and you're like, well, I want a new game, but I have $3 to my name. Well, if I sell this one to GameStop, I'll get $12 for it. So then I could buy a video game for $15 fucking dollars. You know what I mean? So you sell a lot of your video game stock and you're like, oh shit. And then you look back years later, like, ah, shit, I can't believe I fucking gave that away. And not only did you give it away for basically nothing on the dollar, but it was a game you probably loved in the first place. So even if you just wanted to play it because you liked it, you can't fucking do that anymore.
Well, just to give an example here, the games that I was most into as a kid were first and second generation JRPGs. So I had, and again, I didn't think of this in terms of a collection. So I had both of the Chrono Trigger games in box. I had the booklets. I had Final Fantasy 3 through 7 in box, everything. Super Mario RPG. I had games like Secret of Mana and Legend of Legaia, which are, again, pretty rare games now. I think as a kid, you'd think, well, these are video games. These are new. They're never going to be rare. Which is, of course, what made the comic books that we talked about last episode, like the first appearance of Superman, so valuable, is that people even the people that had them, just think of them as this new, current, disposable garbage, right? The one that haunts me the most is I had the game Mega Man Legends 2, which, first of all, is an awesome game. It's a great game that nobody's played. At video game stores right now, that sells for about $800 in case.
Dude.
And I think, what did I do to that? Do you want to know what I probably did to that? I probably played through it once, and I probably just put it in its case, let it get tossed around my room, and eventually I probably donated it to Goodwill, or I threw it in the trash, or the disc got scratched and I threw it the fuck out. And then a few years later, I was like, whatever happened to Mega Man Legend 2? Everyone knows Mega Man Legends for the PS1 and, Mega Man 64 for the 64. Why doesn't anyone talk about the second one? I look it up. This is in my 20s. I found out it's extremely rare. And I go, oh, I'm never going to see that game again. And now it's one of the most sought after PlayStation 1 games. And I think I just had it. I had it. I got it as soon as it came out. My mom got it for me because I liked the first game. And I thought nothing of it. And I thought nothing of treating it like garbage.
What's really interesting is that I would say the most valuable game I gave away. And what's crazy is, of course, Shopko back in the day, Brian. I'm sure you remember Shopko. I mean, probably not super well, but
I do. I remember
store.
Shopko.
Oh, hell yeah. And my local Shopko was like the first Shopko. So like my
mom... Wait. I worked at a Shopko, Taylor.
Wait, I thought you worked at Sears.
I did work at Sears also, but I quit to go work at the Shopko, one of the last Shopkos.
Oh, really? I didn't know. That's fucking hilarious.
When I was bouncing around from fast food and retail job in like 2013, after you and I lived together, I worked at a Shopko for a while, the one in De Pere.
Okay, I was about to ask, was it the one in De Pere? Because I remember that was one of the last ones. But the neighborhood Shopko for me was the original Shopko. So they usually got like all the best Shopko shit that all the other ones took a while to get. So, but I remember like maybe 2006, 2007. I remember it was in the mid 2000s because that's when these games came out. But they would always have these like bundle games you could get at the holidays, which were like, a bundle of usually 2 or 3 games that were like not super popular. They would just bundle them together for like $20 or whatever. And they'd be like, hey, kiddies, here's a bunch of crappy games no one cares about for $20. And I remember one of those bundles, Brian, was, and this was for the GameCube. This was no joke. It was Killer 7 and Def Jam Fight for New York. 2 of some of the best games for those consoles.
Killer 7's incredible.
Yeah, great fucking game. And both those games are some of the rarest GameCube games out there now. And I remember giving away Def Jam Fight for New York, which is a great fucking game, by the way. One of the best fighting games for the GameCube. And I go online, and every time I will never see it for under $200 in box. That's the one that I gave away. I don't remember any other major GameCube game I remember giving away at the very least.
So, speaking of bundles, if memory serves, I have to double check and make sure the one. I think this is a deceptively valuable game now, too. I had the Wind Waker Metroid Prime bundle. That was, I think, the only rare GameCube game I had. And at the time, you think it's trash, because it's a re-release of games, right?
Brian, that has been a lot of people's holy grail for the GameCube. I know that.
I had it, and I thought nothing of it. I thought, oh, this is just a cheap way to play 2 games that I like. And I had it, and I thought nothing of it.
That sucks. I actually have, I would say the GameCube, actually no, PS2. I would say the PS2 I have the most valuable games for, but GameCube is definitely a close second. And I have so many fucking games that, like I said, were either given to me or like I bought for fucking pennies on the dollar. I remember my brother, when I was much younger, he would, obviously play games and like him, and he'd give them to me because he's my fucking older brother, and he was, of course, being, nice to his little brother, right? And I can tell you some of the games he gave me. One of them was Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes, which is also a very valuable game. One of them was, God, what the fuck was that game? It was like a horror game. Oh, Eternal Darkness. Darkness. He gave me Eternal Darkness too, which is also a fucking rare GameCube game. That's also a fantastic game, of course. And he gave me the original Wind Waker as well. And he gave me the Ocarina Master Quest disc, which I believe was a pre-order with Wind Waker, if I'm not mistaken. There's actually there's another one that was also a pre-order bonus. You got your choice between Ocarina Master Quest or it was the like 4-pack. I can't remember what the 4-pack was. I think Majora's Mask was in it at the moment. And then I remember when I was trying to complete my GameCube collection years ago, I asked him and then my cousin if I could complete the Resident Evil collection on GameCube. And now those are the rarest GameCube games. Like, I remember my cousin got me Code Veronica, and now that's like a $300 game, and I just got that for fucking Christmas or my birthday.
See, that's always funny to me, is when the games become really rare collectibles that, like, suck shit. Because, like, for it to be, like, Eternal Darkness or, like, Mega Man Legends 2, which are these great games that people didn't get to play a lot of, you're like, okay, that kind of makes sense that people would be trying to hunt them down. When it's, like, Resident Evil Code Veronica, you're like, boy, I'm spending way too much money on this.
No, it's fucking crazy. And then over the years, I completed my collection once again just by going to Mega Media Exchange or Preplate and just buying random games and then just holding on to them forever. Like, I have only ever given away a handful of games, like, after 14. And I think the most recent games and movies that I gave away were ones that were just explicitly, like, Zionist propaganda. Like, I gave away that stuff because, of course, something had happened maybe a few years ago that made that not enjoyable to consume anymore. I remember giving up every Sacha Baron Cohen thing I had and also The Last of Us, both games. And I'm like, oh, this is garbage now. This is just total trash. And I mean, I've talked in the podcast about how bad The Last of Us 2 is, but like after October 7th, I'm like, I need to get rid of this immediately. And I did. I got rid of all that shit. Another one was World War Z. Oh my God. World War Z is like such Zionist bullshit propaganda. No offense to, Mel Brooks, great filmmaker, but his son is a total fucking hack. And he wrote this book that later became a movie, World War Z. And you want to know what the conceit of World War Z is, Brian?
What?
So it's, of course, a zombie apocalypse movie where the entire world is falling apart. But one country in the entire world is stable. And guess which country it is?
No.
Yep, it's Israel.
No.
The reason they did that was because they banded together and allowed Palestinians equal rights. And then a Palestinian child sings and it lets the horde in.
You're fucking... This is not real.
No, dude, I am dead serious. That is in the movie. I am 100% serious. I'm not joking.
This is insane.
Like, literally, Israel is safe because of the segregation, and they allow Palestinians in, and a Palestinian child sings, and it lets the zombies in. I'm not joking. That's literally what happens in the movie.
Monstrous.
And I remember watching this even, like, I don't know, a few years after it came out, because I was like, I don't know, I'll watch a zombie movie, I guess. And even at the time, I'm like, this is weird, and it doesn't make any sense. Because, like, I wasn't, like, super in tune with Israel-Palestine. I mean, I've always been anti-Zionist.
You're familiar.
I've always been anti-Zionist, but I wasn't, like, quite familiar with everything that happened, obviously. But then after October 7th, then I'm like, oh, this piece of shit movie, I remember that. That literally happens in World War Z. It's just a total fucking pile of shit. Terrible film. And like I said, just wrong. Just everything about it is fucking wrong.
I just thought it looked like a bad movie. I had no idea about any of that. That's insane.
I mean, it's something that Americans believed, and I mean, some stupid Americans still believe, but majority of Americans believed up until 2 years ago. So, I mean, I guess there's something to that. But no, back to, other fun video game discussion, right? Like with the PS2 era, and then I did for the Xbox 360, and then by the time the Xbox 360, PS3 Wii came out, physical video games started to not be super valuable or rare anymore for the most part. I mean, there were certainly some exceptions, obviously, but for the most part, due to the rise in digital and due to the rise of streaming that really started burgeoning around the time that those consoles started to make wind, usually physical discs weren't seen as much of a like holy grail as they used to be, because you could rent games a little easier. You could get digital games a little bit easier. You could, fucking rent movies or digital movies a little bit easier. And then by the time the PS4 and the Xbox One and the, Wii U and then later the Switch, like physical video games at that point basically became like, who cares for the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, there certainly will be the nostalgia cycle that happens in 5, 10, 15 years, etc., that will make some of those physical games, valuable and sought after. But for the most part, I think that's going to be much less of a wave than what happened with, like I said, the, Xbox, GameCube, PS2, and then before era. Like, I would say the Xbox 360, PS3, and Wii era was like the last era where you're going to get a lot of games that are super valuable, at least in my personal opinion.
I'm inclined to agree with that. You like to think, right, that kind of like speculation, collectible markets, that you would think that at least on a smaller scale, industries or at least fan communities would look at past trends and go, let's sit this one out. You would think that would happen.
No, absolutely. I mean, you'd really think that nerds through generations of being screwed over by speculator markets, you would think they would not jump on this bandwagon because, you know, as I said in the last episode, like if, you know, your average movie and like video game nerd going to Mega Media Exchange in 2017 is hearing about it in Green Bay, like you've already lost. You have lost the speculator market. The only way to win is by just being years, if not generations ahead of everybody else by buying the shit that's now worth something. But nobody knows what's going to be worth anything fucking 30 years ago.
I'm sure that's true in the video game speculation market, which is something I don't know about. Going back to the sister episode about the comic book speculating market, the people on the ground floor who did that were the most intensely about that life nerds. And I'm sure it was like that with games too, were the ones that kept their boxes, kept their booklets, kept their discs in pristine condition, and they did that because they fucking loved the shit, right? Because it scratched some sort of itch. They didn't do it because they were speculating. Once the speculators find out about it, that's like done, because they start doing that with everything, and it's worth fuck all.
No, absolutely. And I think that leads perfectly into the thing that we've talked about, the speculation market, which is the ultimate conclusion of it, which is exactly the same thing that happened to, you know, baseball cards, and the same thing happened to comic books in the 90s, which is video game grading and putting them behind the sealed whatever bullshit, right? And I'm sure you've heard a little bit about this, Brian, right?
The way that I think about it is it just seems to parallel the shit with comic book grading companies, which are a fucking joke to people that enjoy comic books for the most part.
No, absolutely. And it's a fucking joke to most gamers as well. And there's these various companies. I'm not going to tell you which ones, because I know a lot of them have actually went out of business due to the scamming bullshit that they've done. But like, it was basically like how the comic books in like the 90s were, right? Like you would get one that was either factory sealed or wasn't sealed or was good condition, bad condition, whatever. And they would just assign some random arbitrary grading to it that would signal to other speculators and ill-informed people that this was a game worth having. This was a valuable
God,
thing.
it looks just like the fucking comic book grades. I'm looking it up now.
It's the exact same thing. And, you know, I was saying about it on the last episode too, like it's gotten to the point, and not necessarily now, this is a thing that happened quite a few years ago and the hype has mostly died down on this kind of bullshit. But like there were people who would go to like Walmart or Best Buy or Target and buy brand new video games that you can buy anywhere for full price, get them sealed, and then it would be like, 95% or 90%. And then they would put them on eBay for $500.
Motherfuckers don't understand how items become collectible. I don't understand what they don't understand about things that are rare are collectible to people that like them, who know about them.
No, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where like, if you are a, you know, avid video game buyer, rare video game buyer, and you know the market, what you're going to be doing is either getting a once in a lifetime deal on eBay or going to a video game convention or like a small store, you know, video game convention like, you know, Portland Retro Gaming Expo or the, you know, Gaming Midwest Classic in Milwaukee or whatever. And you're going to be buying games there. You're not going to be going to some random idiot's page on eBay who paid fucking $60 for a brand new video game and is trying to sell it for $500 because it got a seal approval from some scam company. That's not how anything works when it comes to buying collectibles.
What's going to end up happening is the same shit that happened to the comic book collectible speculators, the people that built comic book or video game collections, not for any interest in the format or the medium, but just an interest in the supposed collectability, which is that it's just speculators selling to other would-be speculators until the last speculator buys them, realizes they're not ever going to be worth shit, and is just holding the bag, and now has a garage full of shitty fucking games that they don't even want.
No, absolutely.
And they probably were putting it right next to their stack of comic books that they never wanted from back in the 90s. And baseball cards before that.
And their Beanie Babies even at that point, too.
Yeah, you got one dumb motherfucker in your town who's got a garage full of this shit, and he doesn't have any interest. He doesn't like any of it, but he's sure that he probably invested in a bunch of fucking meme shit coins, too.
No, absolutely. But yeah, that's the thing that has really been, unfortunately, driving the, you know, retro video game market for quite a few years now at this point. But like I said, not as much as its peak, but it's still definitely there. But it's also one of those things where it's also a money laundering operation as well. Or at least I suspect it's a money laundering operation, especially 2 or 3 years ago. And once again, not as much now. It still exists, but not as much now. But like 2 or 3 years ago, you'd hear a viral story of a copy of Super Mario Brothers for the NES that had some random misprint was recently sold at auction for $2 million in a sealed edition. And then what that does is like, oh wait, I have that game and it's in a box. And then the box is like fucking, but also that box has like cat piss on it and it was one you bought for $5. Yeah. And it's just like not even close to the level. And they're like, I gotta go to my store. I'm gonna get like $5 trillion for this. And then the guy like laughs at him behind the thing and will be like, I'll give you $5 for it. And they're like, fuck!
$5 is like, generous in most of As someone who's into comic book and record collecting, when they give you $5 for that, it's because they feel bad turning you away empty-handed. Having been in that situation?
No, absolutely. So know. And that happened in the 90s too with like those Disney VHSs that allegedly were worth a lot of money. And then once again, those were rare misprints or
Taylor, they went back in the Disney vault and they were gone forever. I have the last VHS copy of Lady and the Tramp. It's in the Disney vault. It's not coming out for another 25 years. If you want to watch Lady and the Tramp at home, you better pay $75 for this tape that I have.
You know, there's a couple good game collecting subreddits, arguably, you know, our game collecting, which is probably the best, I would say, retro game collecting forum on the internet at this point. It's just very large. It's very multifaceted. There's people with collections of everything you can fucking think of, and also people who have collections of everything. Like, they're just rich people or people who bought over the years or whatever. One of my favorite subreddits is the shitty game collecting subreddit. Have you ever been in the shitty game collecting subreddit? Because you know what it is? It is literally people who are making fun of right now, but it's like that, but like crackheads. It's like that on top of it, too.
This is awesome. Because I guess as we're kind of reeling into our final thing, I said this last episode, and I feel like I should reiterate here. Collecting stupid bullshit is fun. I'm not trying to say, like, don't collect. And I think we've been pretty clear about that, right? Like, I've always been into collecting stupid bullshit. I, at one point, collected comic books. Now I would say I like records and I like books. But I wouldn't say I'm just accruing, and I'm certainly not doing it to flip them on the market for money. I'm just like, this is a weird, interesting thing that I don't see a lot. I'd like to have it in my selection. But this whole idea that you're going to, first of all, if you're a speculator, you're trying to turn not even your own hobby into a grift. You're trying to turn someone else's hobby into a grift. That's fucking loser behavior. And it's never going to pan out, man.
No, it absolutely is. Just total fucking loser bullshit. But like I said, Brian, I would 100% recommend looking at the shitty game collecting subreddit. Right, it's so fucking awesome. There was one I remember where it was like, it literally was like a crack den in the background. And it was somebody trying to sell like a Wii or something for like $500. And you could like see like somebody smoking crack in the background. That's fucking ridiculous.
God, this is so fun. I'm so glad you told me about this.
Yeah, so fucking cool. Like, anybody who posts on that subreddit, unironically, you're a fucking king. I love that. And also there's one of the top ones, this is a really funny one, just real quick, where they're trying to advertise a like Pac-Man machine, but it's like one of those mini ones, and they have like a doll hand out to simulate a real hand.
Oh, God.
Like a Barbie doll hand. It's hilarious.
These are nasty posts, man.
Yeah.
Some of them are literally nasty, like the fucking beds these games are on look nasty, but just like the vibe of these people is nasty.
Yeah, it's fucking awesome.
If you're like a collector nerd in the way that like I am, and you just like stupid shit and you think it's fun to have once in a while, and you can afford to get some stuff that you think is cool, it brings you, you know, you think it's fun, it brings you joy, to hunt it down, to display it in your house. You know what you can do, I would say, to anyone that likes retro video games, stuff like that, is wait till the fucking bubble bursts completely and all these jackasses are stuck with shit they don't want, and then go into their homemade video game den and offer them $75 for their shit game. Because I used to do that in like the early 2010s, and this is already like 25 years after the comic bust. You know, Taylor, we lived near a comic book store, you know, when we lived in Milwaukee together. And I remember when I first got my job in Milwaukee, where I worked at a Kmart, and I remember I went to this very dank comic book store that was owned by a very angry guy. And I said, hey, can I go through like your 90s comic books and just pick out whatever I want? And he was very grumpy about it. And I said, like, well, you have a big stack of comic books from the 90s and back, right, that you've never touched anyway. Yeah. And I just want to go through them and pick them out. I'll give you $100. And he let me do it. And I picked out every shitty Spider-Man comic that he had, and I have them now. And they're not collectible. They're not worth shit. But if you like the thing because you like it, that's what you do. You wait. And I'm not saying the guy that owned that comic book shop was a speculator. He probably wasn't if he still had a comic book store in the 2010s. But you know what I mean? Like, if you just want the thing because it's cool, let all these jackasses fucking burn through it, or let them all sit on it and then come in. What's this stupid overpriced video game you see everywhere now, Taylor? Give me an example.
Okay, so overpriced video game. I would say almost anything that was a limited run company video game that literally just got out of stock, but it's a video game that you can buy for almost any console, but it's a specific variant of that console. Like, for example, I think the most recent one is the PS4 edition of Shadow Sonic Generations, I would say, is the most bullshit one recently.
Oh, now think about this. Listener, you're a retro video game guy, and you fucking think Shadow the Hedgehog is hot, right? Now, all these jackasses have that. Wait 5 years, and you can go and pick up 5 copies of it, and you just have them because you think it's fun, and you come out on top.
No, absolutely. And, you know, it's one of those things where, to the people at home, and I would say these are going to be my total final thoughts for this, because unfortunately the bubble hasn't quite burst yet, as I've said many, many times this episode, but I feel like it's going to very, very soon because, like, it's a speculator market. They can only ever fucking just keep going until it explodes. I mean, we're kind of seeing that right now with the AI market that is just hopefully so close to bursting. I can't fucking wait for AI to burst. But with the video game collector, speculation market, right? Like, if you're a fan of any generation of console, like, once again, let's just say if you just really fucking love the N64, just really, really love it, here's what you can do. In the N64 market has been fucked for years at this point. But if you're a big fan of N64 games, buy the N64 games you want to buy. Legitimately. If you are a fan of, let's just say you really want to have Blast Core on the N64, which is one of the rarer, and also, no pun intended, but a rare N64, because Rareware made it.
Yeah.
yeah. DK64 and all that. But, like, if you really want to play Blast Core for the N64, right, what you could just do is, just go on eBay or just go to random stores or whatever and make it an adventure, and you'll eventually find Blast Core. I promise you'll find Blast Core. And maybe it's $100, but if you really want Blast Core for the N64, you can just simply have it. You can work for it, you can save up for it, you can just fucking have it. Or if you're just really into collecting, the Pokemon games, that's a market that's been fucked for generations now. But, like, if you really want to do that, you can keep looking forever and forever, and you will find a Pokemon collection or Pokemon game that you want for a value that's not going to fucking destroy you. But if all you're looking to do is just speculate on a market that has been just ran through the world's most used fucking whore, like, if you want to fucking go through that market and you think you're going to make it big on that, I have a fucking just magic castle to sell you. It's not going to fucking happen. That ship has sailed a long time ago. And just wait once again for the market to crash also on top of it.
Ultimately, this echoes, I think, my final thoughts in a contemporary setting right now with our comic book crash episode. If you're going to start collecting something, don't do it with the intent to flip it and make money. Just collect things that you like. Yeah, if you want Blast Core, if you want every rare game for the N64 that is like the Studio Rare, for example, if you want Jet Force Gemini, another now I think relatively somewhat rare game that I had as a kid that was awesome. Actually, I don't know if it was rare, but it's overlooked often. If you want Jet Force Gemini and you want fucking like every fucking GoldenEye like edition, go get them because you want them. You're not going to make money doing this. Like, you just won't. You're going to get fucked over. You're going to fuck yourself over and everyone's going to laugh at you. It's okay to collect shit. It's okay to collect ephemera. I mean, we are old millennials after all. It's a large part of our life.
No,
but
absolutely.
You're not going to make money doing this. And you're probably going to end up fucking over the industry that you love, or that at least maybe the art form that you love, by doing this speculation bullshit. Because ultimately, it's not good for anyone except for short term. It's good for like fucking stockholders. In the very short term, it's good for them.
No, absolutely. And like, I'm one of the few people that with my current video game collection, I actually would make a significant chunk of money on that. But that's once again a thing that I've been building.
You've had it for years.
For fucking 20 plus years now. Like, I've been collecting video games.
And you weren't speculating when you got it. You weren't acquiring them to flip them. That's why you have an organic, interesting collection. That's why it's valuable.
Exactly. When I was given an N64 at the ripe old age of 7 years old, I wasn't thinking, in 25 years from now, I can make money from this. I certainly was not fucking thinking that. I can assure you of that much. But yeah, so that will be our video game speculator market, and I can't wait for a cringe generational segment in a year or two from now when every video game that I bought for $3 is now worth being $3. Hopefully that'll happen some fucking day.
God willing.
Yeah, God fucking willing. But yes, with all that out of the way, let's get into our pluggables. Speaking of things that will be speculation markets in the future, will be our valuable pluggables. So you can follow me at Carlos Chantor on Twitter.com. And as well, please follow and subscribe to us on our YouTube channel and our Spotify channel, where we upload every episode simultaneously to both platforms. And I have a new pluggable. I am starting a new personal channel, a personal finance YouTube channel. This is not financial advice, to be very clear, but I have recently started a YouTube, a Instagram, and a TikTok. I don't even know what it is, but apparently all the fucking cringe Zoomers love it. But either way, I will be uploading content to those various social media platforms very soon. Stay tuned to that. Really depends on when I'll have the energy to film more content. But, I have a lot of time on my hands these days. So, stay tuned to that. And I'll link that in all the episode descriptions, and I'll be plugging that in future episodes. I'm very excited for that.
You probably should do TikTok, because I think what you're looking at doing here would go over really well on there.
Yeah, definitely TikTok and Instagram. The YouTube stuff would definitely be for more long-form content. I mean, I would still do like YouTube shorts and stuff like that. But yeah, TikTok and Instagram for sure would be the primary places to do that. But once again, that will be a future thing. You might see a video or short. But no, it's, one of those things where, like I said, that content will be coming out one of these days. But stay tuned for that. And then, speaking of things to stay tuned for, of course, the Lucifer and the Father campaign. Of course, our good friends Scott, Sean, Robert are creating a fantastic series. At the very moment, they haven't updated us in the group chat, but they updated you with anything recently, Brian?
No, but I was actually just thinking the other day I should reach out and see what stage they're at, how they're doing. Because last we spoke to them, I mean, it seemed like they were in a very enthusiastic, very like promising spot. And we'll have to we'll get Scott on the podcast again soon. I'd even like to do something like when he came on to talk about the Terminator movie. He was really good with that, so I'd like to get him on again, and he can fill us in then.
No, absolutely, yeah. Once again, we would absolutely love to have Scott back on an episode. But yeah, either way, last we checked with them, last update they gave us, they were still at the post-production stage. Of course, they still need certain funds to get that. Just of course to pay them for their hard work, and of course just get some of the other post-production work done. So feel free to donate to their GoFundMe. So once again, feel free to donate to them. We believe in Scott, Sean, and Robert. We are very excited to see future episodes of Lucifer and the Father. And as always, as we've said before, if you donate to their GoFundMe, just send us an email, send us a YouTube comment, just giving us any indication that you donated, once again through legal means, and we will within reason match those donations about $20-25 because we want Scott, Sean, and Robert's dreams to become a reality. And then of course we open the show with a very tragic story of a really good guy who's getting fucked over and who got fucked over. But there's somebody who is also a really good guy who's getting fucked over at the moment, and his name is Luigi Mangione. And last time we checked up with him, we were talking about how his defense were still arguing with the presiding judge of the New York case about the fruit of the poison tree argument, that his possessions at the time were confiscated without obvious continuous body cam, and he wasn't Mirandized during his initial Altoona arrest. And they're still going through those processes. I think the fact it's lasting this long shows this is a pretty complicated thing. And of course, we've always said we don't believe Luigi did it. We believe he's 100% innocent. Not guilty, to be very clear, just innocent of all charges. There's no compelling evidence he did it. There is just so much reasonable doubt here, and we need to support Luigi in any way we can, whether that's financial, whether it's rhetorical, whether it's just sending him a letter, whether it's just being there for other people who also support him. And if you don't have anything nice to say, as we always say, just don't say anything at all, because we don't need more negativity in what's currently going on right now.
Yeah, I know there's a lot going on. There's a lot of tragedy going on. There's a lot of anger. And I know that his whole deal might seem like it was so long ago. There's so much more going on. But they are trying to make an example of him. They have no evidence against him. And if they can get him on this with no evidence, with this fucking, like you said, all evidence born from the poison tree, if they can get him on that, they can get anyone. That's why it's so important to keep talking about Luigi, to keep supporting him, to write him a letter. As we've said before, he apparently enjoys getting letters if you can't spare anything monetarily. And keep talking about him and just keep reminding people that this is what they're trying to do to a guy with no evidence, with no substantial evidence.
No, absolutely. It's fucking shameful. It's absolutely fucking shameful. And like I said, we just need to be there for Luigi and the people who support him. And, speaking of course, we have donated to his crowdfund. And, it's one of those things where, like I said, just like with the Lucifer and the Father campaign, if you donate to the campaign, just send us a YouTube comment, send us an email, just showing us that you donated, and we will within good reason match those donations, because we need his defense fund. We need his just overall support to be as high as possible, as morale as high as possible, because once again, we need to be there to support him and other people who are fighting the good fight at the moment. And, speaking of people who are fighting the good fight as well, we also have a Patreon account. And at the moment, we don't have any patrons, but become our first patron today. We've, of course, been...
Please do your patriotic duty.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just like you're protesting ICE, protest the icy amount of money
giving us money
in our accounts. Yes, exactly. The frozen amount of money that is in our Patreon accounts, because we don't have any patrons. But be a patron of ours today once again. We've been talking about the $5 tier where you get every episode 48 hours early, because we always say the first 48 hours are the most important. Once again, you have a normie coworker who's always talking to you about some random fucking video game like Call of Duty 25 Mountain Dew Avenged Sevenfold Edition, and you would just say to them like, oh, there's these two guys I know who know all about the speculator market, and like how
they know all about FIFA.
Exactly. They know all about a random, PS2 video game from fucking 20 years ago where a teenage girl is physically, sexually, and emotionally manipulated for 4 hours, and eventually she has to kill her own dog. It's a really interesting game, and you'd be like, oh, that's really interesting, dude. I can't wait to fucking hear about that.
I'm glad you told me about that.
But you could hear about that 48 hours before anybody else, so you can talk to your normie coworkers about very normal things, as everybody loves fucking doing these days.
We are in a time of repression. We're in a time of being withheld. And the reason, I contend that the reason that the podcast has not yet blown up, the reason we do not have patrons, is because we are shadow banned. And if you want to help fight this fascist administration, you can sign up to our Patreon.
No, absolutely. 100%. Sign up to our Patreon. We're cool motherfucking dudes. And then, Brian, do you have any pluggables as well?
Please follow the show at Millennials Are Old Pod on Instagram and Threads. That remains the best way to reach out to me in in regards to the show. If you love us, if you hate us, if you want to do a Gamergate on us and dox us, if you think that we are incredibly soy, if you think that my opinions about Tom Laughlin are bad, if you feel like I don't give the guy a fair shake and he's actually not only a good guy, but in fact a really admirable filmmaker with good physiological and psychological opinions as displayed in his books about cancer treatment. Again, Millennials are old pod. Best place to reach out. If you have cringe millennial content you would like us to address, if you have questions about, I don't know, about any of our pluggables, about any of the things we promote, because I know we do promote a lot of things. You can also follow me personally at JLo Biafra on Instagram and Threads. The most consistent way to reach out to us is Instagram and Threads. We also have a Facebook page, Millennials Are Old Podcast, where every episode goes up concurrently with the Instagram page. Do I have anything to plug? Well, I think that right now I just really need to emotionally heal. It's been really hard for me to sit back and look at the Patreon and look at the way that we're being strangled. There's a lot of good people being hurt by this administration, and it just pains me that I have to be among those good people.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Fight the good fight. If you're in fucking Minneapolis, keep fighting the good fight. If you're in Western Wisconsin, make sure you document all these fucking ice pigs. If you're brave enough, fucking poke one of their tires out or something. Just do something, or just be there for your fucking neighbors too. If you're in Western Wisconsin or the Twin Cities, genuinely be out there, because a very underrated aspect of this is that ICE, a lot of them are staying in Minnesota, but to, stay away from a certain amount of people, they're staying in Western Wisconsin. They're staying in places like fucking Eau Claire and like River Falls and Hudson, and staying far enough away from the Twin Cities that people don't even know those like little communities exist. So yeah, if you're in those communities or you drive through them, document everything you fucking can, because we need to bring down these fucking losers as much as possible. But speaking of people who aren't losers, I'm going to speculate, Brian, that I am going to have a really good time falling asleep, and I will have a very valuable sleep tonight as I dream and hope for a better day when I can buy Kuon for the PS2 for $20.
Well, I think I'm going to stay up tonight and dig through my closet and find my 30 copies of Super Mario Brothers Duck Hunt, and I'm going to try to sell them on eBay for $75 a piece, which I think is reasonable.
I think so, absolutely too. So have a good night, everybody. Sleep tight, and don't let video game speculators or anybody else bite, because they fucking suck.